I appreciate your concern, Tazuna. I'll be fine, Naruto replies, a hint of a smile on his lips. Nightfall comes as Naruto slips away from Tazuna's house, his form melting into the shadows and his mask hiding his face. The new moon provides the perfect cover for his approach to the daimyo's manor as he explodes into an unkindness of ravens, and the black birds scatter, flying silently through the night sky towards their target. Naruto nears the manor and reforms but sends a few ravens to circle the building, searching for a weak point in the defenses as he hides in a tree. He covers his left eye and links to one of his ravens. The black bird soars silently through the night air, and its keen eyes scanning the building below. Let's see, Naruto thought, as the raven notices a window left slightly ajar, and directs the raven to land on the windowsill. The raven hops inside with its talons clicking softly on the polished wooden floor as it moves down the hallway, keeping to the shadows. The raven creeps forward as voices drift from a nearby room, and it maneuvers closer to the partially open door, careful not to make a sound. Shipment will arrive tomorrow night. Make sure our friends are ready to receive it, a woman's voice said, her tone hushed but authoritative. Naruto's eyes narrow, as it seems the rumors might hold more truth than Tazuna wanted to believe. A guard's footsteps suddenly echo down the wall, and the raven quickly vanishes in a puff of smoke, as Naruto explodes into an unkindness to fly towards the roof of the manor. Naruto takes a seat on the cool tiles as Branwin lands gracefully on his shoulder. The Shadow Monarch strokes the bird's glossy feathers, his mind racing with the implications of what he'd overheard. It seems our dear Lady Tachibana isn't as innocent as she appears. Perhaps a healthy dose of fear will change her mind. What do you think? Naruto murmurs to Branwin, and his lips curving into a wry smile. Fear. Fear. Corruption runs deep but not beyond your reach, Branwin says, ruffling her feathers. You're right. We can't let this continue, Naruto says with a nod and his expression hardening. Let's pay our corrupt daimyo a little visit, shall we? He adds, rising to his feet and breaking down into an unkindness as Branwin took flight. Music. Statue of God, theme solo leveling episode 11 Tortichi Gundot, Ost covered. Inside Lady Tachibana's opulent bedroom, do the shadows coalesce, forming Naruto's imposing figure. The daimyo is a woman in her early 30s with elaborately styled hair, and she jolts awake at the sudden chill in the air. Who are you? Guards! Guards! She shouts, her eyes widening in terror at the sight of the masked man at the foot of her bed. Naruto's voice is calm but laced with an undercurrent of menace. Your guards can't hear you, Lady Tachibana. It's just you and me now. Or should I say, it's just you and Wave's cage. No, he says, his blue eyes gleaming in the darkness. Tachibana's eyes widen in recognition, and a gasp of horror escapes her lips. You're Wave's cage. No, she whispers, her voice trembling with fear. I am, and I've come to address the troubles plaguing this land once again. Troubles that seem to lead back to you, Naruto says. The shadows around him seem to deepen. The daimyo's face pales even further, her hands clutching the silk sheets as if they could offer some protection. We need to have a little chat about your business arrangements with certain unsavory characters, Naruto says, his hidden blue eyes glowing with an otherworldly purple light. I don't know what you're talking about, Tachibana stammers, her bravado crumbling. Oh, I think you do. Pirates attacking Wave Country freely. Mysterious shipments arriving in the dead of night. Ring any bells, Naruto replies, his tone deceptively gentle. Tachibana's eyes flash with some blossoming defiance, and her fear is momentarily forgotten. You're lying. You have no evidence. These are baseless accusations. She spits, her voice trembling slightly. Naruto's lips curve into a smile behind his mask and his blue eyes glinting with amusement. Is that so? Then perhaps we should consult some witnesses, he asks softly, and says one word. Two shadowy figures rise beside him, and they solidify as Tachibana's eyes widen in horror. To Naruto's left is the imposing Krieg with a wicked grin spreading across his face. Krieg, Tachibana whispers, her voice barely audible. To Naruto's right is the lascivious Sophia with her eyes cold and calculating as she regards the trembling Damo. And Sophia, I believe you're all acquainted, Naruto adds, gesturing to the kunoichi. The color drains from Tachibana's face as she stares at the two figures. Their light blue skin amongst the inky blackness, her mouth opens and closes but no words come out. Krieg's eyes narrows with his face contorting into a menacing scowl. The imposing pirate, Captain, glares at Tachibana, his silence more threatening than any words could be. His massive frame seems to loom larger in the shadows, casting an ominous presence over the trembling daimyo. Sophia's lips curl into a sneer, her cold gaze fixed on Tachibana. Her arms remained crossed and her posture rigid with barely contained anger. Her eyes that are usually calculating and distant now burn with a fierce intensity that spoke volumes of her displeasure. They would speak if they could, Naruto muses, cutting into the tension as Krieg and Sophia maintain their silent but accusatory stares. Tachibana squirms under their gaze, her earlier bravado completely shattered. This is impossible. What are they? Tachibana says, her gazing darting between the three in panic evident in her eyes. Dead. And Eren. Yes, but shadows have a way of revealing even the most carefully hidden secrets, Naruto finishes for her, his tone soft but dangerous. The daimyo's shoulders slump in defeat with her earlier bravado completely evaporated. What do you want from me, she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. The truth, Lady Tachibana. And then we'll discuss how you're going to make things right for the people of Wave Country, Naruto said, his presence filling the room with an otherworldly chill. Tachibana's eyes dart nervously between Naruto and the shadowy figures of Krieg and Sophia. She swallows hard, her hands trembling as she clutches the silk sheets tighter. I understand, Tachibana whispers, her voice barely audible. Now, tell me, are there any other pirates involved, or was it just Krieg? Naruto says, his hidden eyes boring into her. The daimyo hesitates for a moment with her gaze flicking to Krieg's imposing figure, but her eyes widen as she sees numerous other eyes opening around her, causing her to flinch visibly in fear. It was just Krieg. I swear there were no others, Tachibana admits, her voice shaking. Good. That simplifies things, Naruto says, nodding slowly and his expression unreadable behind his mask. He moves around to the left side of the bed, the shadows seeming to swirl around him and the numerous eyes following as Tachibana shrinks back, and her eyes wide with fear. Consider this a sign, Lady Tachibana, a sign that it's time for change. You have a choice to make now, Naruto said, his voice low and dangerous. What choice? Tachibana says, struggling to find her voice and her lip trembling. You can choose to ensure Wave Country, continued prosperity, to rule with fairness and integrity. Or, Naruto says, his form glowing with an otherworldly light. He pauses to let the silence stretch uncomfortably as the shadowy figures of Krieg, Sophia and the numerous eyes loom larger, their presence a palpable threat in the room. Or you can end up like Gato did, your corpse on display for all to see. A warning to those who would abuse their power, Naruto finishes, his voice barely above a whisper. Tachibana gasps with her face draining of what little color that remains. No, Pete, please. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want, she begs, her earlier defiance a distant memory. What I want is simple. You're going to end all dealings with pirates and criminals. You're going to continue investing in Wave Country's infrastructure and security. And you're going to do it all under my watchful eye, Naruto says, his posture relaxing slightly, but no less intense. He leans in closer with his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. Remember, Lady Tachibana, the shadows are everywhere. I'll be watching your every move. One step out of line and... Naruto says, letting the threat hang in the air and unspoken but unmistakable. Yes, Yes, I understand. I'll do everything you say. I swear it, Tachibana says, nodding frantically, and tears streaming down her face. Naruto straightens up and is satisfied with her response, but turns to the shadowy figures of Krieg and Sophia, before dismissing them as they dissolve into wisps of darkness.
Remember this night, Lady Tachibana. Remember the choice you've made. The future of Wave Country depends on it, Naruto says, as the eyes recede and gives her one last piercing gaze. With those final words, does his form begins to blur and melting into the shadows that fills the room. In moments that he is gone, leaving behind only the chill in the air and the terrified but trembling figure of the daimyo. Song ends.
Renenhan. The next morning sunlight streams through the windows of Tazuna's house, casting a warm glow over the dining area. Team 7 sit around the table, their breakfast laid out before them. Sasuke's dark eyes are alert despite the early hour, methodically eating his rice and sipping miso. Hinata is beside him with perfect posture, her pale eyes focused on her meal. She handles her chopsticks with grace, each movement precise and deliberate, befitting her status as the Hyuga heiress. Sakura's pink hair is neatly combed, engaged in light conversation with Kakashi as he lounges at the head of the table, his ever-present book set aside for the moment. Tazuna is out on his bridge and doing an inspection while Kaiza has gone out on his boat, and Tsunami has taken Inari on a walk. The sound of footsteps on the stairs draw their attention as Naruto appears, his blonde hair tousled and eyes still heavy with sleep. He let out a massive yawn as he approaches the table. "Good morning," Naruto mumbles, sliding into an empty seat across from Hinata. "You look tired, Naruto." "Late night," Kakashi says, his visible eye crinkling in what might have been amusement. Naruto pauses in the act of reaching for a bowl of rice, his blue eyes meeting Kakashi's sharp gaze, but for a moment, tension seems to crackle in the air between them. "Oh, I just went on a quick patrol last night. Wanted to make sure there weren't any more pirates lurking around," Naruto said with a forced chuckle, his hand resuming its journey to the rice bowl. Sasuke's eyes narrow slightly at this explanation, but he remains silent, continuing to eat his breakfast with practiced indifference. Sakura couldn't contain her curiosity and leans forward as her green eyes sparkle with interest. "Naruto, if you were going on patrol, you should have brought Sasuke with you. It would have been a perfect opportunity for him to prove he deserves a spot in the Goti 13, she exclaims, gesturing towards her brooding love. Naruto's chopsticks pause halfway to his mouth, and he sets them down with a soft sigh, his blue eyes meeting Sakura's eager gaze. "We've gone over this." "Stop asking, Naruto," said his voice low and tinged with a hint of frustration. The pink-haired Kunoichi opens her mouth to yet again protest, but Naruto's stern look makes her think better of it, and slumps back in her chair, a small pout forming on her lips. Kakashi's visible eye crinkling with amusement and leans forward slightly. "Naruto, Sakura might have a point," he said in his usual lazy drawl. Naruto scoffs and his blue eyes flash with annoyance as he picks up his chopsticks again, stabbing at his rice with more force than necessary.
"With all due respect, Kakashi, I think I know what I'm doing when it comes to the Gote 13, Naruto said, his voice low and controlled. Sasuke silently observes the exchange, raising an eyebrow at Naruto's tone, and his face twists into a scowl directed at Naruto.
"What's your problem, Uchiha?" Upset. "I won't cave like everyone else," Naruto challenges, meeting Sasuke's glare with one of his own. Hinata's soft voice cut through the tension before Sasuke could respond. "Excuse me, Kakashi-sensei. Since our mission to escort Tazuna is finished, will we be returning to Konoha soon?" she said, her voice polite but firm. Kakashi looks thoughtful, and his visible eye surveying his genin around the table, but also Naruto. Well, given that Naruto seems to have handled the pirate issue quite thoroughly, I suppose we can head back, he muses, tapping his chin and giving Naruto a pointed look.
Actually, I'll remain another day to speak to the daimyo. Your team can return. Just tell the Hokage I remained. Naruto says, meeting Kakashi's gaze as he slips some rice in his mouth. A moment of silence falls over the table with Sakura's eyes widening in surprise, while Sasuke's narrow suspiciously and Hinata's pale gaze flicks between Naruto and Kakashi, a hint of intrigue in her expression. Kakashi raises an eyebrow with his visible eye studying Naruto intently. Oh. And what business might you have with the daimyo? He said, his tone casual but with an undercurrent of curiosity.
Just some follow-up regarding the pirate situation. Nothing for you to worry about, Naruto says with a shrug, his face a mask of indifference. Sasuke scoffs to break his silence. Since when do you handle diplomatic matters, he asks, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Naruto's blue eyes flash with a mixture of annoyance and something else, a weariness that seems out of place on his young face. He sets down his chopsticks with a soft clatter and turns to face Sasuke fully. Unlike Green Genin, like the three of you, I have been dealing with diplomatic matters for some time now, and your words are proving why the Gaudy 13 don't need you, Naruto, said his voice low but carrying a sharp edge. The table falls silent with the tension palpable in the air. Sasuke's face contorts with anger, his dark eyes blazing with indignation, and without a word, abruptly stands up with his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He storms out of the room, his fists clenched at his sides, and Sakura immediately follows after the king of the brooding. Sasuke! Sakura calls out, hurrying after her teammate. Hinata remains seated and her pale eyes fixed on Naruto with a blank expression. The silence in the room grows heavy, broken only by the distant echoes of Sakura's voice calling out to Sasuke. Kakashi sighs while running a hand through his silver hair. He fixes Naruto with a stern look, and his visible eye narrowed slightly. You didn't need to say that, Naruto, he said, his voice carrying a note of disappointment. What? It's the truth, isn't it? Naruto retorts, meeting Kakashi's gaze without flinching, and a defiant set to his jaw. Kakashi leans back in his chair with his visible eye narrowing slightly. He lets out a long but tired sigh before speaking. Perhaps you should set a better example as a member of the Gaudy 13. I'm sure Lady Tsunade and Lord Ieyasu would think so, he said, his voice calm but carrying a note of reproach. The blonde reaches for his cup, taking a slow sip of tea before responding. The warm liquid seems to soothe some of his irritation, and when he speaks again, his voice was more measured. Perhaps, but Sasuke needs to learn that things are different now. At the academy, he was the big fish in a small pond. But now he's swimming with sharks in the ocean. Naruto concedes with a wry smile, setting the cup down gently. You're a shark, then, Hinata said curtly, her voice carrying an edge that cuts through the tension in the room. I am. He needs to see the reality he faces. The world outside Konoha isn't going to coddle him just because he's an Uchiha, Naruto says, his expression calm and measured. You're not wrong, Naruto. But remember, you were once in Sasuke's position too. It wasn't so long ago that I'm sure you were struggling to find your place in the world, Kakashi said, his tone thoughtful. Naruto's blue eyes harden with a cold look settling over his features. Have you forgotten, Kakashi? I left Konoha at 12 and survived the last 6 years in the real world. Not in the safety of this village like your team, he says, his voice dropping to a low but intense whisper. The Jonin's visible eye widens slightly and is caught off guard by the intensity in Naruto's voice. I've traveled to various countries, seen things that would make your genin tremble in their sleep. The world out there. It's not the same as the one you're preparing them for, Naruto said, gesturing vaguely towards the window. Hinata's breath is caught in her throat, her pale eyes fixed on Naruto, wondering just what he had experienced in those 6 years away from Konoha. I see, Kakashi said, leaning back in his chair in his earlier relaxed demeanor, replaced by a more serious expression. Yes, you should see. Sasuke needs to understand that his name and his clan's reputation won't always be enough. Naruto says, his voice losing some of its earlier edge and some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Naruto pushes his chair back and stands up with those words, his movements fluid and purposeful. I'm going to get dressed. I'm heading out for a patrol, Naruto announces, his tone leaving no room for argument, and heads towards the stairs with his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet room. Kakashi and Hinata watch him go with a heavy silence settling over the table. The Jonin's visible eye follows Naruto's retreating form, a mix of intrigue and slight anger in his gaze. Hinata's pale eyes too remain fixed on the spot where Naruto disappeared, her brow furrowed in quiet contemplation. Hinata, find Sasuke and Sakura. Tell them to pack their things. We'll be leaving soon, Kakashi said, his voice gentle but firm. Hinata nods as her pale eyes flickers with understanding. Of course, Sensei, she said, rising gracefully from her seat. Without another word, turns and leaves the room, her steps light but purposeful as she goes in search of her teammates. As Hinata's footsteps fade away and Kakashi left at the table, his thoughts turned inward. The Jonin's visible eye narrows slightly as he considers the complexities of the situation, and how much his sensei's son changed, but not in a way he likes. Venenhan. In Konoha, there are two kunoichi who are feeling the absence of their favorite blonde shinobi as they stroll the street of the village. Mai turns to her companion with a mischievous glint in her green eyes. Tenten. What do you say we do a bit of shopping while Naruto's away? It might help take our minds off missing him, she said, a smile playing on her lips. Tenten perks up at the suggestion. That's not a bad idea, Mai. I've been meaning to explore more of Konoha anyway. Maybe we could find something nice for Naruto while we're at it, she replies, her voice brightening. Mai chuckles and links her arm with Tenten's as they set off at a quicker pace. I like the way you think. Though I'm not sure what we could get for our man, she said, her eyes scanning the various shop fronts. I agree. Konoha doesn't elicit good memories for him, Tenten says, getting a few curious glances from passersby. Mai and Tenten continue their conversation while discussing potential gifts for Naruto, but then Tenten suddenly freezes mid-step. Her eyes widen and are fixed on a point across the street, or namely a certain weapons shop. Tenten. What's wrong? Mai asks, concern evident in her voice. It's him, my adopted father, Tenten says, pointing to the man coming out of the shop. Mai follows Tenten's gaze to see an older man with graying hair, his stern face etched with lines of disapproval, as he notices the two kunoichi. Memories flood Tenten's mind of her adopted father's true intention concerning Naruto, heated arguments beginnings, disapproving glares, and the final explosive fight that led to her leaving Konoha at 13. She could still hear his voice, filled with venom as he spoke about Naruto and vitriol coming from his mouth. I still remember our fight, Tenten says, her fist clenching at her side. Do you want to go back? We can go back if you're uncomfortable, Mai said, placing a comforting hand on Tenten's shoulder. No, I'm not that scared teen anymore. I've grown, and thanks to Lady Tsunade's guidance, these past 6 years, Tenten says, squaring her shoulders and taking a deep breath. The pair begin to walk past the shop, but Tetsuo gets in their way after seeing his adopted daughter, and some unknown kunoichi. His face is etched with deep lines of disapproval, his graying hair neatly combed back. Tenten feels her heart rate quicken as his familiar gait brings back a flood of both happy and bad memories. Tenten, I see you've returned to the village. The rumors were true, Tetsuo said curtly, his voice as stern as she remembers. Yes, I have. It's good to see you're well, Tetsuo Tenten says, meeting gaze steadily and trying to cordial while drawing strength from Mai's presence beside her. Tetsuo's eyes flick to Mai and takes in her vibrant auburn hair and striking green eyes before returning to Tenten, the child he raised until 13 and had decided to leave for some cursed boy. I had hoped you've come to your senses about that, Uzumaki boy, Tetsuo says, his lips thinning into a disapproving line. Tenten feels a surge of pride and affection at the mention of Naruto. Actually, Naruto and I are together now. He's remarkable, and an even better person. I wish you could have seen that, but you let prejudice blind you, she says, straightening her shoulders with her voice clear and confident. Tetsuo's face darkens with his brows furrowing deeply. I see you're still as foolish as ever. That boy will only bring you pain and... He spits, his words laced with disappointment, but Mei interrupts his words. That's enough. You don't know Naruto, and you clearly don't know the amazing woman Tenten has become. She doesn't need your approval anymore, Mei interjects, her green eyes flashing dangerously, and her posture protective as she moves in front of Ten. The bun-hair girl feels a rush of gratitude towards Mei, and is touched by her friend's fierce defense. She places a hand on Mei's arm, gently moving to stand beside her. I'm sorry you still feel that way, Tetsuo, but I'm not sorry for my choices. They led me to become who I am today, a strong kunoichi. A trusted friend and a young woman in love, Tenten said, her brown eyes meeting Tetsuo's unflinchingly with her voice calm but firm and pauses. I've grown beyond the girl you knew, Tetsuo. I've trained under Lady Tsunade, faced challenges you couldn't imagine and found happiness with Naruto, but also Mei. Your bigotry will no longer affect me. I'm no longer just an orphan named Ten, but Ten. The Swordancer Tenten says, determination in her brown eyes as Mei smiles. Tetsuo's face contorts with a mix of anger and something that might have been regret as he opens his mouth to speak, but Tenten holds up a hand, silencing him. Goodbye, Tetsuo, Tenten said softly, a note of finality in her voice. She links her arm with Mei's, ready to walk away from the man who had once been her whole world. Tenten, wait, Tetsuo calls out, his voice gruff but tinged with uncertainty. But Tenten and Mei were already walking away, their steps in sync and leaving Tetsuo standing alone in the bustling street. Thank you, Mei. I needed that, Tenten says with a shaky breath, after they turn a corner. That's what friends are for. Now how about we find something extra special for Naruto? I think we both deserve a treat after that encounter, Mei said, squeezing her arm reassuringly. That sounds perfect. And Mei, I'm really glad you're here, Tenten says with a smile, feeling a little lighter. The two continue their shopping trip with their bond strengthened by the shared experience as they eagerly anticipate Naruto's return. They walk with light laughter and detailed chatting, neither noticing the subtle movements in the shadows around them. Oh, look at this! Naruto might like one of these, Tenten exclaims, pointing to a shop window displaying an array of beautifully crafted throwing knives. They're gorgeous, though knowing Naruto, he just uses his dagger. Pistols or rifle, Mei said, leaning closer to the window and her eyes sparkling with interest. But they quickly share a laugh while still unaware of the eyes watching their every move. Targets are still on the main street. Heading towards the market district, a figure says, dressed in civilian clothes, speaks quietly into a communication device. In a nearby alley. Understood. Keep visual contact. Do not engage, another voice crackles through the device. Beautiful ladies, would you like to try some dango? Freshest in Konoha. A seemingly innocent street vendor calls out as Mei and Tenten continue their stroll. Oh, that sounds great. What do you say, Mei? Tenten says. Her eyes light up at the food. As they approach the stand, does a new member disguised as a fellow shopper bumps into me, muttering a quick apology before disappearing into the crowd. How clumsy! Now about that dango, Mei remarks, brushing off her sleeve. The two kunoichi enjoy their sweet treats, blissfully unaware of the network of eyes tracking their movements. They spend the day window shopping, trying on clothes and debating over what Naruto might like best. You know, I think Naruto would appreciate anything we get him. He's just that kind of guy, Tenten said as they exit a bookstore. You're right. It's one of the things I love about him, Mei says, a soft smile on her face. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the streets of Konoha, Mei and Tenten decide it is time to head back. They walk arm in arm, their shopping bags swinging gently at their sides, filled with the day's purchases. This was nice. Thanks for suggesting it, Mei. It really helped take my mind off things, Tenten said, a contented smile on her face. Mei squeezes her arm affectionately with a smile. Anytime. That's what friends are for, she says, and paused for a moment. You know, I have an idea. Why don't we surprise Lady Sinead with some home-cooked dinner, she adds with a mischievous glint in her eye. Oh, that's brilliant. We could head back and whip up something special. I bet she'd love that after a long day of work, 1010 says with her eyes on the sky.
Exactly. And I know just the recipe. Mayuri-sensei taught me this amazing seafood dish that I think Lady Tsunade would adore, May says with a nod, her auburn hair catching the last rays of sunlight.
I hope you're a better cook than me. The last time I tried to make something fancy, I nearly set a kitchen on fire, 10 says as they change direction back to the market district. Don't worry, I'll guide you through it. We'll make a chef out of you yet, 10 Mai says with a laugh, the sound carrying through the busy street. They make their way through the crowded market, picking up fresh ingredients for their surprise dinner. The air is filled with the enticing aromas of spices and freshly baked bread, making their stomachs growl in anticipation. Do you think Lady Sinead will be surprised? Tenten asks as they headed towards the Senju Manor, their arms now laden with groceries and the purchases. Definitely, and who knows? Maybe we'll even manage to get her to take a break from her sake for one evening, May comments with a soft grin, as they near the gates of the Senju compound. The two friends shared a knowing look, both well aware of their mentor's fondness for alcohol. They arrive at the manor with the excitement of their surprise plan bubbles between them, momentarily pushing aside thoughts of Naruto and the challenges that lay ahead. Targets returning Senju compound. Awaiting further instructions, a cloaked figure on a nearby rooftop whispers into a communicator. In the depths of Konoha and in a dimly lit room, does Danzo receive the reports from his operatives. Continue surveillance. I want to know everything about their movements, their relationships, and especially potential weaknesses for Uzumaki Danzo orders, his single visible eye narrowing as he processes the information. Back in Tsunade's kitchen, Dumei and Tenten bustle around it. The aroma of simmering seafood and fragrant herbs fill the air. Tenten watches in awe as May expertly seasons the dish with her movements graceful and assured. Wow, May, you really know your way around a kitchen. This smells amazing, Tenten said, stirring the pot of rice. May smiles with a light blush dusting her cheeks. Thanks, 10. Amiri-sensei always said cooking is an art form, she says, but pauses. You know, speaking of things that are amazing, she adds after gather her thoughts.
Yeah, Tenten says, looking up, curious about May's sudden change in tone. May's blush deepens as she focuses intently on chopping vegetables. I was thinking about Naruto. And as she starts and takes a deep breath before meeting Tenten's gaze, what would you think about? Well, about all three of us being together when he gets back, she adds, and Tenten's eyes widen. You mean, Tenten says, her hand stilling on the wooden spoon.
Yes, I mean, intimately. All three of us, May says, her voice soft but determined. The only sound in the kitchen is the gentle bubbling of the seafood dish for a moment. May, I think that's a wonderful idea. We all care about each other so much, and, well, I've thought about it before too, Tenten says, her face breaking into a warm smile. Really? I'm so glad you feel that way. I was a bit nervous to bring it up, May says. Her relief is palpable as she returns Tenten's smile. No need to be nervous with me. We're in this together, remember, Tenten says, moving closer and giving May a reassuring hug.
Well then, we should start planning how to surprise Naruto when he returns. I have a few ideas, May says with her eyes sparkling from mischief, as they pull apart and both women giggle softly. The two continue cooking and their conversation is now peppered with playful suggestions and shared laughter, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing moment. The anticipation of Naruto's return is now tinged with an exciting new dimension, added an extra warmth to the cozy kitchen scene. Suddenly there is a clearing of a throat behind them, causing both girls to jump in surprise. They spin around to find Tsunade standing with an amused smile playing on her lips. Well, what do we have here? A secret cooking session in my kitchen, Tsunade said, her honey eyes twinkling with mirth. Tenten and Mei exchanges quick glances as their cheeks flush with a mix of embarrassment and excitement.
We wanted to surprise you with dinner, Ten exclaims, hastily wiping her hands on her apron. It's a special seafood dish from my homeland. We thought you might enjoy it after a long day, Mei adds, gesturing to the simmering pot. Tsunade's smile widens as she steps into the kitchen. I must say, I'm impressed. And touched. It smells divine, she says, the scent of herbs and spices filling her senses while peering into the pot with interest. Though I can't help but wonder, what were you two whispering about so excitedly when I walked in? Tsunade says, her expression shifting to one of curiosity and looking to her protégés. Tenten and Mei exchange another glance, but this time with a hint of conspiracy in their eyes. Well, Lady Tsunade, we were actually discussing our plans for when Naruto returns, Mei says, her voice a mix of shyness and determination. Oh, and what kind of plans might those be? Tsunade asks, raising an eyebrow and her smile turning sly.
Let's just say we're planning a special welcome for him. All three of us, Tenten replies, emboldened by Mei's openness. Understanding begins to dawn on Tsunade's face and she lets out a hearty laugh. I see. Well, aren't you two full of surprises today? I think this calls for a toast to new beginnings and creative welcoming committees, she says and moves to the cabinet, pulling out 3 sake cups. Tsunade pours the sake as Mei and Tenten share a relieved smile. The kitchen is already warm from cooking but now is buzzed with an energy of shared secrets and anticipation. The 3 women raise their cups and the clink of ceramic echoing in the cozy space.
2. Naruto's return, Tsunade said, her voice filled with affection for her gaudy member. 2 new adventures, Mei adds, her green eyes sparkling. And to us, Tenten finishes, her heart full of love for her chosen family. As they sip their sake with the aroma of the simmering seafood dish, mingling with the sharp scent of alcohol, the bond between the 3 women deepening. Naruto is preparing for his journey back to Konoha with the sun at midday, and casting it beams across Tazuna's bridge. He stands on the wave side of the bridge and saying his goodbyes to Tazuna, Kaiza, and Tsunami. Thank you, Naruto. We couldn't have dealt with those pirates without you, Tazuna said, his voice gruff but filled with genuine gratitude. Think nothing of it. You've all been through enough, Naruto says, a small smile playing on his lips. You've saved again. You are truly Wave's cage. No, Kaiza says, clasping Naruto's hand firmly. Be safe on your journey, Tsunami says, her eyes shining with unshed tears, and pulls Naruto into a tight hug. Her round and swollen belly with her second child, pressing gently against him. Naruto returns the hug carefully and is mindful of Tsunami's condition. He could feel the slight movements of the unborn child between them, a reminder of the new life that would soon join this brave family. Naruto pulls away and takes a moment to adjust his attire of black cargo pants and sturdy boots, perfect for the long trek ahead. His graphic hoodie is adorned with a swirling storm design, hangs loosely on his frame as he pulls the hood up, shrouding his face in shadow. With a final wave to the 3 does Naruto turn and begin his walk across the bridge. The midday sun struggles to break through the thick blanket of clouds that hang low in the sky, casting a soft but diffused light over the landscape. The waters below the bridge were a muted gray, reflecting the overcast sky above. The steady rhythm of Naruto's boots against the bridge's surface echoes softly, punctuated by the occasional gust of wind that rustles his clothes. I thought you planned to meet Tachibana as yourself to gauge her, Chibi Mikoto asks, as Naruto pulls his hood closer. I did, but changed my mind. She has a shadow attached and I'll know, Naruto replies, shielding himself from the cool breeze that sweeps across the bridge. The cloudy weather seems to match his contemplative mood, his thoughts drifting between the things he'd just completed and the anticipation of returning home to Konoha. A flock of seagulls fly overhead with their cries carrying on the wind. Naruto pauses for a moment to watch them wheel and dive above the bridge. He takes a deep breath and inhales the salty sea air, a reminder of the unique blend of climates that characterizes the land of waves. I hope Mei and Tenten are doing okay, Naruto muses, slipping a cigarette into mouth and lighting it. He continues on, and from beneath his hood with a small puff of smoke escaping, curling upwards before dissipating in the wind. Above him, Branwen is soaring with her wings spreading wide as she rides the air currents. The bird's keen eyes scan the horizon and is ever watchful for any potential threat. He soon reaches the midpoint of the bridge, but something makes him stop in his tracks. Two figures stood there with black cloaks having red clouds, their faces hidden in shadow from conical hats. One is tall with a large and wrapped bundle on their back, while the other is shorter than the first. Naruto takes a long drag from his cigarette, blowing out a stream of smoke, but lifts his head and revealing a single glowing orb beneath his hood. Well, looks like I've got company. You guys lost or something, Naruto said, his voice low and amused. Naruto Uzumaki. We've been waiting for you, the shorter one says, their voice calm and cool.
Waiting for me? I'm flattered, but I've got places to be, Naruto says, flicking ash from his cigarette in the wind.
You're coming with us, Jinchuriki, the taller one says, shifting slightly, and the bundle on their back is making an odd chittering sound. Am I now? And here I thought I had a date with two lovely ladies back home. Naruto says with voice being light, but there is an edge to it, and another drag happens with the ember of his cigarette glowing brightly. The shorter figure reaches up and grips the edge of his conical hat with a slow and deliberate movement to reveal a face that Naruto knows all too well. Itachi Makoto's voice whispers in Naruto's thoughts, a mix of longing and pain coloring the name. Itachi. Uchiha, Naruto said, his voice a mix of surprise and his casual demeanor slipping for just a moment. Itachi's dark eyes meet Naruto's hidden eyes, and his face an impassive mask. It's been a while, Naruto, he said, his voice as calm and measured as ever.
Yeah, you could say that. Last time I saw you, you were, Naruto says with a chuckle, but it didn't quite reach his eyes and trails off a bit, memories of Itachi flashing through his mind.
Things change, Itachi said simply. I've heard some interesting rumors about you. You've been busy by helping rebels in Kirigakure, even taking down the Sanbai Jinchuriki, and had a hand in the new Fire Lord's rise to power. You've been messing with our timetable, Itachi's partner says, his voice gruff and tinged with amusement. Didn't realize I had a fan club, Naruto says, taking another drag from his cigarette. Don't underestimate him, Kisame. He's not someone to take lightly, Itachi says, his eyes narrowing slightly. Naruto's brow furrows as realization dawns on his face. Kisame Hashigaki, the monster of the hidden mist. Quite the reputation you've got there, he said, a hint of recognition in his voice. My fame precedes me. I'm flattered you've heard of me, Kisame says, reaching up and removing his conical hat with a toothy grin. His blue-gray skin and shark-like features were unmistakable. So what brings you here? Naruto says, flicking his cigarette away, and his glowing eyes fixed on the two Akatsuki members. Sharp as a tack, this one, Kisame says with a laugh, the sound harsh and grating. Sorry to disappoint, but I've got plans. How about we reschedule, Naruto says with his posture shifting slightly and readying himself for whatever might come next. I'm afraid that's not an option, Naruto. Come quietly, Itachi says, his Sharingan activating and the red eyes glowing ominously. I won't come quietly, Naruto says, reaching up to pull back his hood. As the hood falls away and Branwen swoops down with a loud caw to land on Naruto's shoulder. The raven's beady eyes seem to glare at the Akatsuki members. Sorry, but I've got a few tricks up my sleeve, Naruto says, his bright blue beginning to glow an eerie purple. Oh, this should be fun, Kisame says with a grin, reaching for the bundle on his back. Arise, Naruto utters, before Kizame could fully unwrap his sword. His army begins to rise around, starting with Yagura and Zabuza with his massive sword, gleaming in the light. What the? Kisame says, his eyes widening a fraction. And Mayuri is next with her twin lightning blades crackling with energy. But then, Mother, Itachi says, and his usually stoic face cracks, showing genuine shock. Mikoto and Greed stand among Naruto's shadow soldiers, with their eyes fixed on their eldest son. Yes, before she passed away from her illness, she asked to join my shadow army. And this large and hulking fellow is Fugaku. Well, I got him when you massacred your clan, Naruto says with a hint of sadness concerning Mikoto. As if on cue, does Greed drop to all fours with his once proud stance now subservient. Naruto casually sits on his back as if it were the most natural thing in the world, and the sight sends a visible shudder through Itachi. Father, Itachi whispers, his composure slipping for a moment. Itachi, Mikoto says, her glowing eyes are filled with a mixture of love and sorrow, as her voice is soft and clear. Mother, Itachi says, a flicker of emotion crossing his usually stoic face, but Mikoto holds up a hand and silencing him. Greed doesn't speak unless I tell him to, Mikoto explains, as Naruto pats Fugaku's head almost affectionately. What kind of jutsu is this? Kisame says with a little unease in his tone. This is no jutsu. This is something else entirely. This power. It's similar to Lady Kushina's, isn't it? Aichi says slowly, his analytical mind working.